that. Everything else is pending the outcome of this horrific scene, and then you can see there's a lot of chaos going on. But I'm confident that they're probably waiting for SWAT to arrive to assume the investigation of this the shooting.
So what do you know in terms of, so you're hearing that there are 3 officers that were injured? Were they all shot? And what do we know about their conditions?
Well, I could tell you that there's multiple officers. It could be 3, it could be more than 3. And they're still trying to figure out how this all unfolded. And, you know, I don't want to give any more information about the officers. I do know the type of officers that were involved in this, but for the consideration of the families involved, I'll just leave it at that. But our thoughts and prayers are for these officers. I know they were transported to local hospitals, and I'm hoping that they are well enough to recover.
Detective, you mentioned that they could be waiting for SWAT to arrive. We know that the department's on a citywide tactical alert. How long would it take to assemble a SWAT team to get here? Or is that what we're seeing now? Pardon me, but as I'm saying this on the top of our screen, does that look like a SWAT vehicle, perhaps?
I can't see it. If you pan it out, maybe I could see it. But typically, SWAT officers, well, I see maybe canine officers arriving. That's a white SUV that I saw at the top right. That could be a canine officer arriving. But typically, we have SWAT officers who are on standby. So it's a matter of getting there as quickly as possible, as safely as possible. So I would assume that they will be arriving shortly, if not already there.
What's your word to the people who happen to live in this neighborhood and who are just innocent bystanders?
If you see anything in your backyard, in your neighborhood, please dial 911 right away. Do not assume that we have the knowledge or we have that information. All the calls generated will be addressed, you know, right away, so that give us intel. So if you're there in the area, lock your doors, lock your windows. Do not be a hero. Let the officers do the thing. If they do start some sort of evacuation, please follow the instructions given by the officers. I'm not sure if they're going to do it or not, but that's a possibility if they want to keep this area safe.
So if this suspect is indeed barricaded, which is what the police are telling us, what's the procedure from here in trying to deal with that situation?
Well, I could tell you that they're going to try to have some sort of communication with the suspect to get him to peacefully surrender, whether it's through cell phone. And I know in recent days you guys reported on the use of the robotic dog that was mentioned. This would have been a great scenario for this particular operation, but hopefully we'll get there when we get there. But anyway, so they're just going to wait and hopefully try to find some sort of way to communicate with the suspect to encourage them just to come out without any further incident. That's the ultimate goal.
Detective, just wanted to update our viewers with some new information. We were reporting 1 person shot that we had gotten confirmed. We now have it confirmed that 3 officers were shot in Lincoln Heights. At least 3 officers shot, according to the LAPD in Lincoln Heights, all of them transported to local hospitals. We don't know for sure that local hospital was LA County USC. We have to sort of assume that it was, because that is a level 1 trauma center and it's right down the street. But we do not know the conditions of those officers right now. We believe that the suspect is barricaded. And Marla, when we talk about body language, as we often look at police officers in action, you get the sense that things right now are very tense.
Absolutely, and when Detective Moses was speaking, we saw the line, really like a procession of officers, single file, getting together, as it seems that this is where the focus is on that suspect who was reportedly barricaded in one of these homes, one of these apartment buildings in this area. Guns drawn as we zoom in now, and we do see that is a black and white. That is not a SWAT vehicle. We are waiting, hopefully, for SWAT to get on scene. That's per Detective Moses Castillo. That would be normal protocol in this situation. We are so sorry to have to report that at least 3 LAPD officers have been shot. This happened almost an hour ago. Now we're on the ground with our ground crew there, our camera there, giving us a look at the officers who are clearing, or obviously preparing to go in. This is the camera of Ed Lascos. Do we have Ed there on the scene? Okay, we don't just yet, but we will work to get that.
But we do have on the phone with us, and Detective, we will come back to you a little later. Thank you for joining us. Joe Buscaino, who recently left the LA City Council. Before that, spent years as an LAPD officer himself, and obviously very, very familiar with the inside workings of the department. Councilman, thanks for being with us. Can you tell us what you know and what your sort of initial reaction is watching this all unfold?
Thanks, Alex, and good evening. Under these circumstances, of course, this entire city is praying for the officers who've been shot, praying that they are well. It's, you know, when you see the breaker coming across your television screen, you first think of your brothers and sister officers. And my phone blew up, lit up literally with, what are you hearing? Are the officers okay? I was texting with Deputy Chief Amada Tingridis, no information on the officers at the hospital just yet. But as you see with the citywide tactical alert, the last thing you want to hear as a police officer on the radio is officer down, officer needs help. We're hopeful that the suspect that is clearly barricaded, you have significant resources on the ground there, is apprehended. And we're hoping that it's a safe situation, not only for the officers and the SWAT officers on scene, but also for the neighborhoods. Alex and Marla, this also gives us another reminder of the irresponsible calls for defunding police and in needing fewer police resources. Yet another reminder of the irresponsible calls on defunding and calling for fewer resources as it relates to public safety resources here in our city. Happy to also see our brothers and sister firefighters on the scene as well, helping with the response to the officers down.
Given your history, Joe, with LAPD, and as we're seeing the live images from Skyfox overhead and then on the ground, we're seeing those officers assemble and prepare to go in, perhaps. What needs to happen in order to bring this suspect into custody?
Well, time and distance is something that's a part of the communication plan, and you're creating and putting together the plan going in, identifying where the suspect may be located, having the resources intact. You have the best and brightest in the Special Weapons and Tactics Division, the best and brightest in the country. And this is where you have the training that comes into play. These officers, specifically the SWAT officers, train on a daily basis. I'll never forget, even in my time with LAPD, the SWAT officers training daily at the police academy. And this is, again, what they're called to do. They train for these specific incidents where you have on the loose that's barricaded a violent individual who wanted to kill cops tonight. So let's hope and pray that these officers going into the situation, trying to apprehend the suspect, are also safe.
Do you have any information about the suspect?
No information at all, Marla. I just, again, it's the text messages that I've got from my former partners. The first thought that we had were, are the officers okay? And then no information on the suspect that I've received thus far.
And of course, top of mind is the officers, their condition, and we do know that, as reported, that they were rushed to nearby County USC Medical Center where they are getting the medical care that they need. But these could be people who Mr. Buscaino, no word on their condition from your perspective.
No, but as you know, it's a fraternity, a sorority, it's a family that pin that badge every day, that are sworn to protect and to serve. So regardless, Marla, if I know these officers or not, they're family to me, and they're family to us, and specifically in law enforcement community. I've unfortunately attended too many officer funerals, not only as an LAPD officer, but also as a city council member. It's part of the worst part of the job. And again, those cries of help on the radio are the worst you can hear ever as a patrol officer.
We're joined by Joe Buscaino on the phone, former LA City Council member, former member of the LAPD. We look at the top of our screen as we go to the aerial shot. You can see some officers there that are running towards a police car, moving kind of quickly. We do see some of these officers that are really wearing some heavy-duty equipment. We believe that the suspect is barricaded, potentially in a garage. What's the next steps? What should we be looking for tonight?
Alex, you cut out.
What do you think are the next steps that we should be looking for tonight from a tactics perspective? What would be the sort of standard operating procedure right now?
Yeah, so if you have air resources on site, you have ground units on site, you have canine resources as well. Again, it's ensuring that you've identified the target where exactly the suspect is located. Also keep in mind the residents, the neighbors, and they're ensuring, and I believe I heard Detective speak earlier on ensuring that the residents in the impacted area remain inside. This is an armed and dangerous suspect. The ultimate goal is to take him into custody safely, and with the hope that this guy clearly is armed. He has no shame of shooting at those who protect and serve us every single night, every single day. He's a dangerous suspect. Let's get him in custody and do so safely, with hopes that he doesn't hurt anyone else moving forward. But clearly, you've got the identified location, and you have the adequate resources. Again, Alex, talking about resources as it relates to public safety, this is a reason why we need more police resources, not less.
Now, you mentioned the location here, and this is Lincoln Heights for people who might be just jumping on right now to see what's underway in the city of Los Angeles. This is North Mission and Broadway, obviously completely closed off. This scene is huge. The perimeter that is below is massive. So we have LAFD, we have LAPD officers up and down the streets. It is a citywide tactical alert. When we hear that term, Alex and I learned tonight, Joe, exactly what that means, and that is just point blank, everybody, all hands on deck.
Right, Marla. Nobody goes home until they lift the citywide tactical alert. There's change of shifts that took place about an hour ago. So the day watch units remained on patrol. The swing shift, the mid-watch units also remained on patrol as well. And the detectives don't go home. Again, like you mentioned, all hands on deck. Let's get this suspect in custody and ensure that no one else is hurt tonight.
All right. Joe Buscaino, any other final thoughts as you're watching this?
Just breaks my heart, Alex. Let's hope and pray that our officers, just looking at the screen here, 3 officers shot. It breaks my heart. These officers, when they came in to roll call, they relied on their faith and training, and their ultimate goal coming in to watch is making sure they go home safely to their loved ones. And let's again put in a prayer for the 3 officers. Let's hope that they're fine and they get to go home tonight to their loved ones. Again, the dangers of policing our streets here in Los Angeles.
For sure. Joe Buscaino, thank you so much for your service with LAPD and for the city of Los Angeles, and for being with us tonight. You stay safe.
Thank you both for having me.
All right, our reporter, Ed Laskos, has just arrived on the scene. Ed, what's it like out there? Describe the scene from your perspective.
And as Joe was saying, you could feel it is palpable here, the tension, as many LAPD units arrive. Black and whites, also members of the SWAT team, have been pulling in here one after another. They're mobilizing. Another black and white comes in here. Let me help them pull up the yellow tape. As Citywide tactical alert, that means everybody's coming in. It's actually sheriff divisions also coming in now with deputies to help out as well. The entire area is sealed off. We are actually here on North Mission. You're looking down the cross is Broadway, and that is the target of this manhunt right now. Up above, Mike is giving you a look. It's unusual that you would see not one but two LAPD choppers circling overhead with their night suns, that bright light shining down at the target. It's that residential area off to the right. It's a residential garage we are hearing. That's where they think the gunman is held up right now, barricaded inside. SWAT is mobilizing, getting ready to do what they have to do to try to get that suspect out. But they also are working, as Joe was pointing out, on securing this neighborhood, making sure, and they've been telling folks to stay inside the apartment buildings, to watch from their windows if they have to, but to get off the streets, to get inside. So they're trying to secure the area, secure the civilians, if you will, the folks who live in this area first of all. And they're having a tough time because it's a busy area through here. You know, Mission and also Broadway is a busy section here through Lincoln Heights, so you have a lot of traffic coming in, a lot of foot traffic, a lot of folks also trying to get to their apartments. We've been talking to several of them, and they're just being held back, as for obvious reasons, safety reasons. If you have an armed gunman and he's held up and barricaded inside one of these garages, that is big concern. You hear some more sirens coming, some more SWAT officers also arriving here, and it is, the tension again continues to be very, very strong when you have not one but three LAPD officers shot. We're understanding the latest information is one of the LAPD officers is a canine officer who was hit by gunfire as they were chasing the suspect. We still don't know exactly. Some more SWAT officers arriving. We still don't know exactly what that suspect was wanted for, but as the story goes and the information flow goes, that suspect was on the run, being chased by LAPD officers and that canine officer, and we have the three officers shot. They were rushed to USC Medical. We do not know their conditions. Everybody holding their breath and praying. Some of the officers, as we arrived, said it was serious, but they were saying a silent prayer. So that is the tension that you have out here in this neighborhood right now as more officers arrive. Citywide tactical alert, and all is focused on it. We're understanding a residential garage area, perhaps by one of those apartments over there on Broadway to the right of the screen of where you're looking for. That's really the focus of this manhunt as it goes on right now, guys.
Ed, you go to crime scenes multiple times a week. Can you put this one into some perspective in terms of the size of it, the amount of police officers that you're seeing out there?
Well, as soon as you are driving up here, you realize it is something very, very serious. And sadly, I hate to say it, when you come up to a scene like this, you realize that it's a law enforcement officer who's been hit, who's been hurt, just by the activity, the quickness of the officers who are responding, SWAT moving and running into position. And as I said earlier, you know, that the tension is palpable in the sense that you can feel it when you move up. It's not a usual crime scene where they have it secured and they're basically trying to talk somebody out. As we always say, all of us, you know, when you're out here on the street, you want to go home safe and sound at the end of your shift. And so the officers, deputies, all law enforcement, they take it very one of their own is hit, it really ratchets up the intensity level, and then there's an all-out search, an all-out manhunt, if you will, to try to get the gunman. And at this point, at least from some positive news here, they seem to have a good track on where this gunman might be holding up right now, barricading himself inside one of those garages. So they're not in a wide-out search trying to locate him. They seem like they have him contained there. It's now just a matter of moving in and getting him out, trying to make this end safely without anybody else, more law enforcement, or even a lot of the folks who live in this area, without them being hit. But again, just a lot of, to answer your question, Alex, just a lot of intensity here as law enforcement, the sheriff's moving back here. They're coming in to help too. Again, as you pointed out, big area in this neighborhood, Lincoln Heights. You've got to seal it off. You've got to make sure you have it controlled and also contained. As we talk about the gunman himself, you don't want the gunman trying to escape. So it was a big project that they got going on with the intensity that three of their officers have been hit, and everybody worried that they're going to be okay as they are rushed off to the ER.
Ed, are you getting a sense that they're setting up their command post to be able to relay new information to you?
I'm sure they're setting up the command post, directing where they want the officers and the units that are arriving, particularly the SWAT officers. Not saying anything to us, and to be frank, right now we're the least of their concerns, the media. They're dealing with trying to contain the area, keep civilians safe, and get that gunman. That's their top priority. Information slowly moving down to us, but that's really what their focus is right now.
Yeah, and the LAPD putting out on Twitter that they are putting a particular address out there for the media to gather to try to get some of that information out there. So hopefully when that happens, we will bring that to you live. We are also hearing calls that they're trying to get all available SWAT to come to the scene to help in this. Presumably, we're going to see Rick Dickert, the Bearcat, see some of the most advanced technology that SWAT has that a regular officer out on the street wouldn't have access to if this suspect is indeed barricaded. That would make it much safer for the officers out there.
That's right. And the LAPD has one of the strongest, most elaborate SWAT components of any law enforcement agency in the country. It's a special unit, and it's the acronym for Special Weapons and Tactics. And the situation with that is there are specially trained officers, obviously those SWAT officers are, and they may not be on duty. They may live in the valley. They may live over towards the west side. And they've been called out, and they're ready for that call out. They're ready for that 911, and they're heading to the scene with those resources. They've been trained to operate those resources so they could utilize them to bring this suspect into custody. Geographically, very quickly, if you are looking down below at our shot here in Lincoln Heights, it's a small neighborhood. It's part of the city of Los Angeles, close to the 5 and Dime, the 5 and the 10 freeways where they meet. It's just to the north of the 10 freeway, this neighborhood is. It's just to the east of the 5, Mission Road. But what we're really focused on, Alex and Marla, is an alley off of Prince Street. It's a very small little nugget of this neighborhood off of Mission Road, off of Broadway there. But it's an alley off of Prince Street that they are very focused on, where they think that suspect has barricaded himself.
And that has long been the focus since we jumped on the air. And so for folks who are just jumping on with us right now, let's bring you up to speed. We have a camera on the ground. You're seeing those LAPD officers make their way closer to our camera. Yeah, and is that... Oh, that's a SWAT. Is that a SWAT vehicle there?
Those are the SWAT vehicles. Those are the heavy-duty guys that are rolling up to the scene here.
This unfolded just over an hour ago, 6:39. LAPD got the call of officers shot. We can tell you that 3 officers, LAPD officers, have been shot in the Lincoln Heights area. Detective Moses Castillo, former LAPD, you have some new information for us. You're on the line.
Yes, I could tell you that sources have confirmed to me that the LA County Sheriff's Department is also assisting with this operation. Deputies from the East LA Sheriff's Office and other units. And I believe it's to be true because when an officer gets transported to a local hospital, we always provide security for that officer inside the hospital to make sure that no outstanding suspects try to gain entry to cause further harm. So maybe the sheriffs are going to be responsible for providing security at the hospital since LA County UCMC is part of the sheriff's jurisdiction. But I can tell you that we do have multiple officers. I'm hearing... It is not confirmed, but I'm hearing there may have been a 4th officer that was injured. I'm not sure if he was shot or just injured. So we pray again that the officers are going to be okay.
And of course, we know that the Sheriff's Department has one of the best SWAT departments in the country as well. So what we're looking at right now, thank you, Detective Moses Castillo, we're looking at the SWAT resources from the LAPD starting to move their way in to this area where they believe to be a suspect barricaded, who we believe to have shot at least 3 officers, if not more. So obviously they're proceeding with a lot of caution, and they think that they have that suspect surrounded. And the question now is, the process of trying to draw that person out, hopefully peacefully, and get him under arrest. But Moses, as somebody who's been in the field, is it a little different when you know that a potential suspect has shot at officers? Do you treat them different And are you a little more, willing to engage that suspect potentially?
Well, we are concerned for the safety of the community as well, because this suspect has proven himself to be very dangerous, and he definitely has some firepower. We're not sure what the caliber of the weapon is, but for him to be able to shoot that many officers in such a short period of time is very, very alarming and dangerous. So I could tell you that I am confident that some of your viewers are watching this from that area, and they may know who's involved. Strategies to try to get them out in the most safe manner as possible.
In your connections, have you heard of what led to what led to this, as we are now seeing that SWAT officer go toward that alleyway? Any word on what led up to the shooting tonight?
Yeah, they were conducting some sort of investigation in that area, whether it was a search warrant or some sort of investigation, and then the shots ran out. That's all I know at this point.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of questions that we still have. We're now at the point of this scene, though, of sort of the LAPD focused on the imminent task of trying to save lives and protect their own lives and try to get this suspect out. And my guess is their feeling is that some of those questions can be answered a little later on tonight as we look at some of the different folks here. That looks like it may be an ambulance right there by where Ed Lascos's camera is. And now we look, and it might be interesting also if we could take the picture up top, which shows the SWAT officers.
And it looks like, you see that debris there adjacent to that SWAT unit there, Alex and Marla? That looks like that could have been an area where one or more of those officers may have been initially treated. It was likely an incredibly chaotic scene. Officer down, officer needs help. Officers rush to the scene. They see that an officer is down. LAFD is called. They need to treat, with perhaps active gunfire still, one or more of those officers. That is the situation that our first responders have to deal with there on Prince Street in the Lincoln Heights neighborhood off the 5 and 10 freeway here in Southern California. Bottom line, we have this area surrounded. Our officers are highly trained SWAT units. Again, special weapons and tactics. They know how to deal with these situations. They're going to go after that guy and bring him into custody. Somehow, we've gotten word that he could be injured as well. The LAPD helicopters are up, as we just heard. Obviously, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department is aiding the LAPD in this situation. Bottom line, they have it surrounded here, and they're going to try to go in and bring this guy down.
If you're just joining us, we've been on the air now for some time. This was an incident that unfolded just before 6:45 tonight. Shots fired, officers down. Unfortunately, we can report that at least 3 LAPD officers have been shot. Conditions unknown. They've been rushed to nearby County USC Medical Center, a major trauma center, so thank goodness that was close. We're working to gather more information about those officers' condition. The suspect, in the meantime, has remained barricaded somewhere down below from our Skyfox shot, where that night sun has been cruising around, and they've been seen to focus on Prince Street, as Rick just pointed out, the main crossroads here, North Mission and Broadway, as we now get that full picture, Alex, that you were wanting earlier, and that's where that SWAT is, in that alley on Prince Street. Where that focus is.
And you see that ladder there on the right side of that SWAT unit there, and that's the ladder that those officers used to get up on the roof of that porch there. We saw them up there earlier looking down, focusing on that one structure where they do believe that individual has barricaded himself. We also saw officers canvassing the backyards, the properties in and around adjacent there, searching just to make sure that that individual did not exit that building and is hiding out in some area. This must must be a frightening situation for all the residents in the area. It's unclear if they've been officially evacuated or just essentially locked down in place, doors and windows locked. Call 911 if you see anything at all unusual. If you see somebody, there's a lot of people in this, obviously, officers and first responders in this neighborhood at this time. But a lot of areas, it's a tight area there, multiple structures there, apartment buildings, single family homes as well. This is Prince Street right off of North Mission Road and North Broadway, off the 5 and the 10, just blocks away from County USC Medical Center, one of the best trauma centers in the nation there. And we do believe that's where those officers who were injured in this incident were taken. Unclear of what happened. Unclear if there was a pursuit, a termination. Unclear if they just approached somebody on the street. Wow. It sounds perhaps like they may have been serving a search warrant to one of these homes, and that is how that happened. That has not been confirmed at this time.
Yeah, we are working to confirm that. We heard that from Detective Moses Castillo, who had word that this may have started as a search warrant in this neighborhood. Let's work to confirm that. And we're just seeing more and more units show up. Rick, as you were talking, a massive SWAT unit just showed up in addition to everyone else who's down below. We should also mention that LAPD is on a citywide tactical alert, as we're seeing this SWAT unit with the flashing lights below the trees there make its way seemingly maybe on the other side of the alleyway. Yeah, well, we know there's at least one SWAT unit right there that we're looking at. There was a second one there, which may have been the SWAT unit that just drove past where Ed Lascos's camera is. So we see multiple of them on the ground there. And then you see on the top of your picture officers that are moving into position as well. So clearly the focus is on this house, potentially on this garage. And the question is, when will the officers make their move and how will they make their move? But this seems to be where they're going to make their move. Yeah, it is a very tense scene, obviously, and a reminder to anybody, it's worth repeating that if you are in this area, please lock your doors. Do not go outside. Obviously, all the roads are closed off in this area. Just a huge perimeter has been set up by LAPD, LA County Sheriff, obviously helping in this investigation, as well as LAFD. So, in less than a minute, we are going to be turning things over on TV to Fox Primetime. That's The Masked Singer is going to be airing. But our live coverage is going to continue at foxla.com. You can go to the Fox 11 Los Angeles YouTube channel. You can use the Fox 11 app where we will be here with you as we watch what happens here, and we will have updates on our social media channels as well. So if you're interested in more coverage of that, we encourage you to head to our website right now. And then, of course, we'll be back here for the Fox 11 News at 10 o'clock. We'll send you off to The Masked Singer starting right now. And thanks for those of you that are continuing to join us online. It is now 8 o'clock. I'm Alex Michelson. And I'm Marla Tejas. We are watching the breaking news unfold in Lincoln Heights in Los Angeles, where LAPD confirms to us that at least 3 officers have been shot, condition unknown. They've been taken to nearby County USC Medical Center. I mentioned the neighborhood of Lincoln Heights. This is North Mission and Broadway. The focus is this alleyway, which is Prince Street, where the suspect seems to be barricaded. We have been told by authorities that the suspect, armed and dangerous, is barricaded below. All hands on deck. Department LAPD has put out a citywide tactical alert. We've seen SWAT down below. We have LA County Sheriff's Department and LAFD as well. It is a massive response, massive perimeter. If you're in this area, please stay inside, because you don't know where this suspect, even though there are reports that he is barricaded, and we have that confirmed, he could sneak out a back door, a back window, and he or she is armed and dangerous. And in the meantime, we're trying to get some more information that's coming into our newsroom. I'm just trying to get confirmed if what I'm hearing is something we can now report.
Is the information we're now hearing something that we can report? Okay. All right, so this is some information we're getting from sources telling Fox 11 that apparently this started with the narcotics unit investigating a suspect, a felony suspect who was spotted essentially in an alley. They called for backup. He ended up in a residence. He wouldn't leave. The canine units engaged this suspect, meaning the dogs, wouldn't leave. They sent in beanbags, wouldn't leave. They sent in gas, wouldn't leave. At that point, with the gas irritating this suspect, the suspect, according to the source, came out and started shooting at the officers. And that 3 of the officers, at least, were down. Then the canine officer called for more backup at that point, and that is where we are at right now, meaning the ambulances came in, took those officers out of there, and now you have a suspect who clearly is very willing and able to target officers in this location. And then the question is, how do you get this guy out of there now?
Rick Dicker, you have covered plenty of these scenes from Skyfox, and when this news broke just after 6:30 and you saw the response, you said this is something serious, and sure enough.
Absolutely. The first pictures that I saw, I could tell the amount of units that were arriving on scene, the positioning of the units from the Los Angeles Fire Department, the nature of the officers, their behavior, how they were running and what have you. It was a very fluid situation, and I could tell that it was going to be something serious. It's rare that when I've been up in the helicopter all those years covering incidents like this, have I seen a turnout like this, Alex and Marla. An army of officers from the LAPD, from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, SWAT units as well, surrounding this area. Now that we're getting that intel about the narcotics unit serving a warrant or approaching this suspect, they obviously knew something about this suspect. They have background information. Drugs and guns typically go hand in hand. So they knew what they were dealing with here. Officers arriving on scene, they tried to flush that individual out, and then it turned into an incident in where we're hearing that at least 3 officers have been injured, have been hit, taken to County USC Medical Center, thankfully just a few blocks away. Again, this is the Lincoln Heights neighborhood of Los Angeles, near where the 5 and the 10 freeway meet, part of the city of Los Angeles. The Los Angeles Police Department obviously does the policing here. The Los Angeles Fire Department, they are the emergency agency that responds to this. And as they responded, they were having to deal with the firefighters and paramedics. Where were those officers down? Where did they need to be treated? Was that suspect still yielding that weapon outside his or her window or door, pointing at both the firefighters, paramedics, and the officers at the time? Or had that individual already barricaded themselves? This is just off of North Mission Road and North Broadway. Broadway runs east-west in that part of Lincoln Heights. Mission Road, more of a northerly, southerly direction, sort of zigzagging. And then Prince Street and Duke Street, very small residential roads, sort of wrap around that larger intersection there in Lincoln Heights, and they're really focused on Prince Street and that narrow alleyway just off of Prince Street. A tremendous turnout whenever there's an officer down. And we're hearing now, Marla and Alex, there could be as many as 3 officers that were hit. This is the turnout that you see. The last time I remember seeing something like this, and it was much more severe in terms of how many people were impacted, was the Inland Center, that terrorist attack on the Inland Center back in December in San Bernardino.
Yeah, we all remember that. It's just so tragic. We are hearing, though, from officers on the ground that the officers are in stable condition and that they will survive.
Oh, that's great.
It's such a relief to hear that. So that is the best news that we've heard since breaking into programming and telling you that 3 LAPD officers have been shot. Our sources on the ground are saying that they are in stable condition. So let's keep them in our prayers as we continue to watch this very dangerous, very tense situation unfold in Lincoln Heights. More and more officers continue to show up. They continue to gather. They're obviously, this is very strategic and how they go about bringing this armed and dangerous suspect into custody. A reminder that if you are in this area, do not go outside. Lock your doors, lock your windows out of an abundance of caution. We're seeing now here this LAPD SWAT officer vehicle there, stationed there in the street. This is Mission and Broadway in Lincoln Heights. And there are multiple units like this. This is a citywide tactical alert, all hands on deck, whether that's LAPD, LAFD, and the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. They are all taking part in this effort to bring this armed and dangerous suspect into custody tonight. And Rick, that's phenomenal news that we just heard about those
great
officers.
news. That is wonderful news, because whenever you hear officer down and the turnout that we saw here and the way that the officers were acting and seeing all those first responders, of course, you have to be very concerned about the condition of those officers. But great news there. 3 officers were injured. They're in stable condition, which sometimes doesn't mean that they weren't injured severely. It just means that they've been stabilized. Whatever injury they have, the medical professionals at County USC Medical Center, where they were taken to, just a few blocks away off the 5 and the 10 freeway. You see it there, the old General Hospital from the soap opera. That's the hospital that you see in the opening of that soap opera, an iconic building in Los Angeles. Now you can see they brought out a robotic device there as well. You see that? Oh, yeah. We're zooming in on that right now. With Skyfox there to show you that. They are going to remotely operate that and use that as a tactical device to see what they're going to be dealing with.
Yeah, now we're really zoomed in. And to your point, Rick, as we're seeing the debris next to the SWAT officers, it very much looks like that could be one of the locations where an officer was shot. It looks like almost like a triage area there with that debris, but it's hard to really get a sense. Okay, here we go. Much better here. The officers there. What do you make, though, Rick? We always judge officers' demeanor. Obviously, it's a very stressful situation. Everyone seems to be just sort of coming up with a plan on how they will proceed and move forward.
Yeah, that's right. But they're a little bit more casual, but you can see guns are still drawn, but you could watch their behavior there, and they're not as intense. Yes, it's an intense situation. I don't want to downplay it, but it's not as intense as we saw when we first started covering this. It appears that, you know, they think that they have this individual contained at this time. They have enough resources in place. When we say perimeter, and there's a canine unit there, and we understand that a canine unit, a canine officer was involved or injured. Unclear if the canine itself was, or and they're both officers. The dog is the officer, just like the standing gentleman there in his tactical gear here. It looks like these officers knocking on the door of this home and checking on residents probably to make sure that they're okay and perhaps bring them into a safer location. It's unclear, as I mentioned earlier, if they've evacuated the nearby homes and apartments. A lot of people live in this very small area here, and it looks like these officers are checking in on this home, this apartment adjacent to the area that they're really focused on at this time.
And it's possible, Rick, that they tried to evacuate the nearby area before they move into this other location, right?
Absolutely. The last thing you want to do is get anybody caught in crossfire. Residents of the area, officers of the area. This is an orchestra that's taking place here. Marla, Alex, everybody at home, thank you for tuning in digitally here. Essentially what they're doing here is they're going to try to clear the area the best they can of anybody who remains in the area. They are communicating with all the units that have set that line. When we say a perimeter, setting that line around the area that they think that that individual has barricaded to himself or herself. And then once that occurs, then what's the second plan? What is the second part of the plan? To go in there, to rush in there the best they can, and to bring that individual into custody without anybody else being harmed or injured. To protect and serve, that is what our Los Angeles Police Department is trained to do. They put on that badge, they go to work every day and night, 24/7, 365, and they want to make sure everybody is out of harm's way. And as we look at this, that's what they're doing right here. You can see that is somebody who perhaps resides in that home that's being evacuated.
Yeah. Being helped down the stairs here, it looks like.
And this neighborhood is one of the older neighborhoods in Los Angeles, one of the sort of original neighborhoods of Los Angeles, Lincoln Heights. The streets in the area, this person looks like they may be handicapped. The streets in the area are pretty tight, back from an era where our cars weren't quite as big and we weren't as much of a car culture. Looks like this person may have a walker there. You know, it is an older neighborhood as well, and it's an area where it's not all that easy to get in and out of the streets because they're so tight. And you're seeing that creates challenges, Marla, for some of the law enforcement in getting around the neighborhood as well because it's so densely compact.
And you wonder if this is what they're going to have to do to the surrounding, to the other homes in this area where they think that this suspect is holed up. Obviously considered extremely dangerous, armed and dangerous. So we're seeing that looks to be a man with a walker is being brought to safety. Thank goodness. The other good news that we're hearing, if you're just jumping on and hearing, jumping online, foxla.com, thanks to all of you who are watching with us. Those 3 officers, we're told, are in stable condition and are expected to survive. Now the focus, of course, is on their recovery and finding out who these hero officers are, but also to bring this suspect into custody. Now those officers seem to be moving in again, and we'll see that their next move, as there are multiple SWAT officers on scene tonight.
And there's that robotic device there, too. You can see it spinning around there.
Yep, top of the screen.
Top middle of your screen there. So they're utilizing that. Trying to clear the neighborhood, Alex and Marla. Again, they're trying to make sure that everybody is out of harm's way first, just in case they encounter what the original officers did at about 6:30, 6:40 this evening when this first unfolded.
So that is showing us that robot, which is in place. And part of the discussion we've had recently, Rick, even just yesterday, was this debate over whether the LAPD should accept a donation of a robot that looks like a dog.
$277,000.
Yeah, to potentially help in situations like this. And, you know, they would say the argument for something like this is when you got a suspect that has shot at officers multiple times, you're safer sending in the robot than sending in officers and potentially putting their lives on the line.
They do it on the battlefields, do they not?
Yep.
They do it on the battlefields, and, you know, I have to tell you what, certain situations would warrant that.
But that analogy is what some folks on the other side say is the bad one, that our streets should not be like a battlefield, and a militarization of the police is the problem. That's what they would argue.
Right, and critics have also said that although this would be a donation of that dog robot of $277,000, that then they would want to get more of those in their repertoire, and then that would become a line item and cost money to be able to afford each and every one of those. So that debate goes on. In the meantime, back here, this is the reality of the situation. The Night Sun now in that back alley. This alleyway, Rick, this is Prince Street?
Yeah, that's right. The alley is just off of Prince Street. Again, this little nook of this neighborhood here in Lincoln Heights, just off of Broadway and Mission Road. Broadway runs east-west. Prince Street cuts south right off of Broadway and then wraps into Duke Street. And it's the alley just off of Prince Street that they've been really focused on.
So as we focus here, another focus is at LA County USC Medical Center. That is where the officers were taken. We're told those officers are in stable condition. I'm seeing some reporting that that's where the LAPD chief, Michael Moore, is and will be briefing the media there. I believe we may have, as we look at this robot now moving, we may have some pictures from LA County USC as well that we want to show you at some point.
And before we get that, we look at this robot here, Alex and Marla. That's a camera. I mean, it's a camera that essentially, that is a robotic device in itself, and it's manipulated by an officer specially trained to remotely operate that device there, move that camera around, swing it around, take still shots, take video, live video, to see if they can find any type of intel that will help those officers proceed with bringing that individual into custody.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Rick, just the capabilities of the little machinery down there. Pretty extensive.
They're phenomenal, and what they're used for as well, if there is a quote suspicious device left on the corner of 1st and Main in downtown LA on the corner, what they'll do is they'll use these devices. Some of them have claws to pick up the piece and toss it around, to take pictures of it, to keep officers well out of harm's way and get that information they need. X-ray vision to see what's inside that bag that they're concerned with, or that suitcase that was left behind. Get all of that information so that they can handle it the best they can. In a lot of cases, in the majority of the cases, it's benign. In some cases, we found that there was something inside that bag, that suitcase. In this situation, they're looking for an individual who shot at and injured at least 3 officers.
Yeah, and the good news, again, that we've heard that those officers believed to be in stable condition and are expected to survive this shooting tonight. So we're looking at that robot, we're looking at the SWAT, and as we get a better sense at the top of your screen right now, you can see all those officers, the SWAT officers that are there watching this robot do its thing, but are in position to potentially move in as well. And you see lasers, Rick. Yeah. That are focused in this area as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And this is the area that we've been looking at since we first started coverage just before the end of our 6 o'clock newscast, and carrying on now through the 7 o'clock hour. And now thank you again for watching us digitally here as we continue to watch this situation unfold. Again, a suspect has barricaded themselves inside that structure right there. We believe, officers believe, SWAT officers believe, and they're trying to flush this individual out. A man, we believe, possibly a woman, that hasn't been confirmed, but we believe it's one individual. These officers likely serving a warrant on narcotics initially, and it led to gunfire.
Yeah, we are working to get that information confirmed as we continue to look and pan over now. It is pretty remarkable, though, Alex and Rick, just to see the response in itself. All of these streets are lined with LAPD officers, LA County Sheriff's deputies, and also LAFD. They're all there, all hands on deck, and they're all there to support one another. More
relaxed, though, I would say, definitely.
Yeah.
Just as we pan around at all the side streets, Broadway, the main streets, Broadway and Mission, and even Prince there, a bit more relaxed, which tells us they feel that they're getting a better control of the situation. They have that alleyway blocked. They have the night sun from the LAPD helicopter circling overhead. Hooper, where the LAPD Air Base is positioned in downtown LA, they can cycle helicopters back and forth all night long if need be to get that aerial support, to provide that night sun, to look down on the situation. They may see something that the officers on the ground don't. We up in Skyfox and the media in the past have actually been able to provide intel to officers, that's something that we saw in relation to an incident that was unfolding. All of that, in addition to the robotic unit there, is helping officers essentially isolate that area, keep that perimeter strong, make sure everybody's out of harm's way, get those people out of there. We just saw a couple of people being evacuated from that nearby apartment building adjacent to this structure just moments ago. And now the officers believe they have a little better handle on it. They have that perimeter in play. Officers, at least as we pan over and see the different areas, look a bit more relaxed. So we're hoping that they will be able to flush this individual out, take him, likely him, into custody, and this will be called what we call a code 4 all clear at this time. The good news is, everybody, is that those officers we hear are expected to survive. We hear they're in stable condition. That does not mean that their injuries were not severe. That does not mean it was just a graze wound. It means that the medical professionals, the doctors, the nurses, the medical staff at County USC Medical Center have stabilized those individuals, those officers that were hit.
And we are waiting to, in fact, get an update from County USC Medical Center, where we are waiting remarks from LAPD for an update, and that's a live look there. Is this the media staging at the scene? Okay, this is the media staging.
And where we expect the chief to speak.
Okay.
Hopefully soon to be able to deliver some of that good news himself. He may be waiting to have more information about how this all ends. What we also don't know, sometimes in these scenarios, Rick, there's this whole buildup, and there are incidents where the suspect has already killed himself in some of these situations, and which is why it takes so long to get in. We don't know if this suspect is in communication still with the officers on the scene, but it would not be out of character for a situation like this to have that be the outcome as well.
And we saw that most recently with that tragic situation at the dance hall and that suspect being chased down into a different neighborhood in Torrance and waiting out and looking into that van, that white van, we remember in Torrance, with all of the same apparatus, looking with a drone, with all the units on the ground, with the aerial support to see, was there any movement inside that van? Did it appear that that individual still had a weapon that was perhaps moving around and pointing at officers? They're essentially doing the same thing here. They're looking inside the best they can with all their resources to see if there's any movement. If they can't see that suspect and they've looked high and low the best they can, then they're going to have to make a decision. All right, are we going to go in? If we do, how are we going to do it? They clearly have enough units on the scene to do that, but there's just the timing involved and the tactical component involved. That's why SWAT is called Special Weapons and Tactics. Highly trained officers here to deal with situations just like this.
So we continue to watch and to wait and to try to get some more information on exactly what is the status of this suspect, and hopefully some more good news on what is the status of those officers.
That's what I want to hear.
Yeah.
Sure.
Exactly.
For sure. Yeah, so we are waiting for LAPD Chief Michael Moore to address the media. We showed you the mic stand set up just a few moments ago at the staging area nearby where this is all unfolding. There that is, a live look. You can see that everyone's there, of course, as they should be, to hear the update from Chief Moore tonight. When that happens, when those remarks start, of course, we will bring that to you live. But here we are almost 2 hours after 3 officers were shot by an armed and dangerous suspect. This may have unfolded while serving a search warrant today in this area of Lincoln Heights, North Broadway and Mission. Those officers were rushed to nearby County USC Medical Center. We're hearing, thank goodness, that they are in stable condition and are expected to survive. I think it's important to point out what Rick has been saying, and that doesn't mean just because they're in stable condition that they don't have serious injuries. They could be, suffering some serious injuries and still be unstable. But the bottom line is we're being told from officers on the ground that they are expected to survive. So our thoughts and prayers are with the families involved, as now the focus is on getting the suspect into custody. We have the robot on the ground, part of the SWAT team, and the technology that they deploy. And this little guy down below has the capability. It's a camera. Oh, going in. It's going into the building there. A little bit more active now.
There you go.
Has a camera there, and it can see in. Rick, do you think that was part of the strategy?
Yeah, I'm not sure, because it hit that stud, that support stud there at a high clip, a high pace. whether it was just trying to get up and close. And, you know, you have an officer there remotely trying to, it's just like a remote control car, and you may push it a little too quickly or what have you. They're trying to get up close and personal the best they can, obviously, to get the best view of what's happening inside there. The tools on that robotic device, the cameras, the X-ray vision. As I said, many of them have claws so they can pick things up if they're dealing with a suspicious device. A pipe that could be a pipe bomb. I've seen that. Countless things I've seen these robotic devices that are very useful and keep officers out of harm's way. And officers were harmed in or around this structure earlier this evening. So they brought out all the stops here. They brought out SWAT. The LA County Sheriff's Department is here aiding the Los Angeles Police Department. Tactical alert. What that means is that all officers are going to stay on duty until this comes to an end, and that's what we're seeing here. The helicopters are circling above, the LAPD airship here with their night sun, watching this and trying to make sure that all officers are safe, all the residents are out of harm's way. Just like with firefighting, the first thing they want to do is make sure that all lives are protected, get everybody out of the building, make sure that everybody is safe from that fire. Then they're going to battle the fire the best they can and to protect any of the structure or the contents of that structure. And in a situation like this, same deal. LAPD, protect and serve. Get those residents out of harm's way. Get them out of any crossfire if that's going to happen. Make sure that they are safe and sound, well away from ground zero, and then they will make that tactical move to go in and get that suspect.
If you are just joining our digital coverage of this, we are looking at 3 officers shot in Lincoln Heights. The suspect believed to be barricaded. We're looking at that robot from the SWAT officers there on the scene where we believe the suspect may be barricaded and waiting to see what happens next. We're also awaiting a press conference, which could be happening at any moment, at USC County Medical Center, where those suspects or those officers that were hit were taken. Marla Tejas has been with me. I'm Alex Michelson with Rick Dickert. Christine Devine is now joining our coverage. Marla will join us again a little later on tonight. Christine, as we bring you into this, as somebody who knows law enforcement so well, what are your thoughts?
Well, right away, I think that anybody who knows somebody in the LAPD who works Hollenbeck has reached out to make sure that the people that they know are okay and safe, and to inquire about the officers shot and their well-being. I did reach out to some contacts, and the person that I know who is working with that division, Hollenbeck, happened to be already at home, so my loved one, my friend, is safe. We're trying to get more information as to the status of these officers. As you know, the LAPD and law enforcement in general is a tight-knit family when it comes to the job that they do and the dangers that they face each and every day as they put themselves and their lives on the line. They do know this is a risk that they face, and it's a nightmare and scare for every family member. As I watch the officers there in position there to the top of your screen, we can see that they are doing the job they have to do from a safe distance, a safe place. And you've been talking about that machine there that can go in and get a little more information for them. It's among the many more modern tools that we have seen them use to keep officers safe so other officers can go home to their families. And that's what we're watching tonight, and it could be a very long night as that plays out.
It could be a very long night. What we don't know is the status of that suspect, or if they are indeed communicating with this suspect, if they know that that suspect is frankly still alive and in there. But they are not going to be taking any chances because, according to what sources told us, the last time that they tried to apprehend him, he shot at them, multiple officers. And so now there's going to be a lot of caution in the approach. And although we're all on a time schedule, of course, we think of the fact that they're now on citywide tactical alert, which means everybody's on overtime, and they got a lot of bodies out there, and they can go as long as they want.
Well, think too. Look at the tight community that is right there in Lincoln Heights. This is a Wednesday night. This is a school night for families. Working families perhaps would have been home cooking their dinner. They might be in their apartments and their homes right now as we speak. sheltering in place because an innocent person doesn't want to get shot as well. So imagine if you live next door or below or across the walkway there. This is going to be a long night for you as well, and it's been going on. You started, what time did you go on the air with this?
6:55, right at the end of our 6 o'clock newscast tonight.
Okay, so imagine a lot of families might have been home at this hour already, kids back from school, and they're dealing with this. Police helicopters overhead, media helicopters overhead. Obviously, you can't walk around or go to your car or drive away. Streets are blocked off there. So think of all the people that are affected by this situation as we wait to see if the suspect is alive or going to be taken into custody, how this all ends or plays out. Alex, we see some movement there with the light. Looks like some officers there on the ground within the property, or is that a resident?
What we have seen so far tonight, Christine, is some of these officers moving out some of the nearby residents, including an elderly disabled person, to try to get them out before there could be a potential second confrontation with this suspect, and try to make sure that everybody is safe, because this, could potentially be in the middle of crossfire depending on what happens in the next few hours. Getting some more information from what our sources are telling us, and if you didn't hear this earlier, we'll repeat it. The thought is, or sources telling Fox 11, that all this started with the narcotics unit observing a suspect, a felony suspect, in an alley. They requested units for arrest. The suspect went back into his home, where we believe this is. Perimeter was set up. Canine unit was set up, police dog. Canine officers made their way back to the residence. They located him in a small room at the bottom of the main residence, what may be a garage. Called him out. He wouldn't leave. They used beanbag rounds. That didn't work. They used CS gas. And at that point, the guy came out and shot at the officers. And 3 officers were down. Suspect, they believe, made it out of the residence, possibly made it back into the residence. So it's unclear exactly where he is, if they believe that this is where he is, or if they've gotten eyes on him. That we don't know, because we are awaiting more official information from the LAPD. We showed you that those microphones were set up at the hospital, where we hope to get more information, but officers so far have not walked up to those microphones that we're looking at to provide us with the latest information.
Right, so it is a night, it's a worrisome night for Angelenos, as we wonder how these officers are doing. And as you said, waiting word from official LAPD to come out and talk to the media. I am thinking of everybody affected by this in that neighborhood right there. And you think, too, as you said, Alex, the scary job of law enforcement. We know narcotics, a very big problem. We think of the fentanyl crisis. We think of the gangs involved with the drug trade. Big issue in our city as well. So an important job that these officers were doing indeed. You see that robot there trying to perhaps give us some more information as to the status of this suspect who fired on 3 officers, which lets you know this suspect is armed, is dangerous if he is still alive, which we can only assume so at this point in time. But if you're willing to shoot officers and you are not willing to surrender, what other steps would you take? Would you harm an innocent civilian? Would you take somebody hostage? Would you shoot a neighbor? I mean, you have to, police have to take all that into account.
Some new information. Our sources at the hospital are telling us about the condition of the officers. That one of the officers was apparently shot in the arm, another shot in the vest, and some shrapnel ended up in the abdomen of that officer, and another officer shot at the elbow. So that is what at least our sources at the hospital are telling us. That's not been officially confirmed or officially reported, but that could be the information that we get once the LAPD officially does do a briefing.
And you know, we often say in the media, the officers are alive, they're going to be okay, but the wounds that you can suffer from a gunshot can be extensive We
And
need our
lifelong.
arms. Yes, you know I have a friend who was an officer who was shot in the arm and was off duty for an entire year with a cast and an arm brace and still has fragments of the bullet, this female officer, in her elbow, in her arm, and pins in her arm to this day. So because we say they're going to be okay oftentimes,
Right.
it could be a long journey of recovery.
Yeah, and if you're shot in the arm or have shrapnel in your abdomen, I mean, that's not a minor scratch either. I mean, that's something that you have to recover from. All that being said, their families are still, probably could not be more grateful at the thought of having them as compared to the other
Absolutely.
alternative, which
Absolutely.
we have unfortunately covered too often together as well. So it looks like, is there a second robot now moving in? It looks like that we're looking now at a second robot moving in. So Rick Dickert, tonight we're kind of going to get a look at all of the, I don't want to say toys, but all of the different options that SWAT has in a situation like this.
And it's all to get all that intel that they can gather without putting officers in harm's way. And this one, a slightly modified one compared to the one with you could see the light. All of them have cameras on them. Some of them have the ability to have like that X-ray vision, much like when you put your suitcase through TSA, they can see what's inside of it. All of those tools on board, claws, hands, handles to pick things up, to shake them, to determine if whatever that is safe. I've seen them use this with suspected pipe bombs or with suitcases that have been left behind. But in this situation, they're looking inside a place where they believe that this suspect who shot at officers, who injured at least 3 officers, is held up, to see if there's any movement, to see if there is still an individual that is still alive or is moving in there, so that they don't have to put officers in harm's way yet. They have the area contained. We're seeing the officers in a more relaxed state in and around this area. We believe that they've gotten everybody in terms of the residential community out of harm's way. And if you are just tuning in, this is in Lincoln Heights, just off the 5 and 10, the 5 and the dime, north of the 10 freeway, just east of the 5 in that Lincoln Heights neighborhood, just a few blocks away from where those officers were transported, County USC Medical Center, which you could see from that interchange of the 5 and the 10 freeway. This neighborhood of Lincoln Heights is just off of North Mission Road and North Broadway. It's on a small side street, Prince Street, and that's a narrow alley just off of Prince Street that we are focused on and have been focused on since this incident first occurred. A little bit more movement from those 2 robotic devices there, getting as close as they can. You can see the arm moving on the one, pushing in perhaps into that structure there. It looks like there's some sort of opening that device may be able to make its way in. You would think that if there was somebody in there with a weapon, with a gun, being that individual shot at officers already, they could shoot at those robotic devices as well. We have not seen that yet. We are seeing a brightly illuminated area there, though, from the night sun, from that bright light underneath the belly of that LAPD airship that's circling overhead just a few hundred feet above this still very active scene.
Rick, as we're watching those 2 robots, it is interesting to watch the one that is sitting there at the top there and the one that is kind of making some moves there. I don't know if they are different types of equipment or pieces of equipment or how they operate, but it's interesting to see that they did bring in those 2 different robots there. Hard to see from this picture to see if that robot actually got into the property, but it is advancing in some fashion. Perhaps there's some kind of tool on it that allows it to push on things, like you said.
Yeah, and it did look like there was some sort of opening, the different vantage points that we've seen from our helicopter shot from Skyfox. There was some sort of opening there that would allow maybe some sort of movement inside that structure there on the first floor where they believe that suspect is held up here. Both of them, though, pushed up against the one support beam there on this 2-story. It appears it's a multiple unit place. You can see bars on the windows of the upstairs unit there on the darker side of that structure. And then the apartment buildings there in the back, and we're moving a little bit here to just see what we can from Skyfox and pulling out there. That is Mission Road there, and that's Print Street. And it appears that perhaps our helicopter, because it's been up for a while.
We're running out of fuel.
Yeah, we're running out of gas there. We got it. I can tell right away. So there we go. We're going off to either Burbank or Van Nuys to gas up.
As you know, you've been in the chopper for many years yourself, working on Good Day LA. Why don't we step away from this shot here of Southern California and go to Ed Lascos, who's on the ground there at the hospital standing.
Ed is at the crime scene. We've got another reporter at the hospital.
Gotcha.
Let's go back to the ground where Ed Lascos is standing by. Ed.
And actually, it's a very fluid situation here, so we have actually moved, and we're not at either of those two locations. We are on Valley Boulevard, which is several blocks away from that huge perimeter that LAPD has set up. The perimeter, as we've been talking about, along Broadway in that area, North Broadway. We are on Valley Boulevard, and it's the area now, the media staging area. Mike, you'll give you a look. Media from all over the city here right now rushing over. We're waiting for a press conference from LAPD, top officials from LAPD, to find out exactly the confirmed information of what happened with the shooting earlier, a few hours ago, in these 3 LAPD officers who were rushed to the emergency room. We know it's still probably going to be there, saying the briefing maybe about a half hour to perhaps even an hour away from this point. Everybody was thinking that maybe LAPD Chief Michael Moore would be here, but now we've been hearing that the chief himself is out of town, so they're trying to move around and get another commander or some high-ranking official to come over here and brief the media. But the details continue to move in. Before we left that perimeter over there on Broadway, which was all sealed off by LAPD, SWAT officers from all over the city arriving. They were mobilizing. A lot of this you've been seeing playing out live through Skyfox. They've also were using the loudspeakers on a lot of the choppers that were flying overhead, 2 LAPD choppers, telling folks inside those apartments, get inside, lock your door, stay away from the windows. They were broadcasting that, if you will, over those loudspeakers on the 2 LAPD choppers that kept circling that perimeter over and over again. And as we came over here getting ready for the press conference, other LAPD officers are here, and of course the big question that we're asking, because we're all in this together, is how are the fellas, how are the officers, or what are you hearing from County USC about their conditions? And the word here on the street from the other rank and file officers, LAPD officers, is our guys are okay, they're stable, and there seems to be a breath of relief when they're hearing that information. So that's the word that at least the officers are getting. We've been hearing that as well from the hospital, so that's a bit of the good news here. But certainly it's an all-out manhunt to try to get that gunman in custody. Evidently it was some type of drug situation with narco agents earlier, officers that went down. They brought in canine officers. Y'all have been talking about it through the last couple of hours. They had him in his house, apparently, the suspect. They used some non-lethal rounds, even fired some tear gas in there, and all of a sudden, as some of the reports, unconfirmed reports are, there's gunfire inside that residence, and then the sound you never want to hear on a police radio, officers down, need help. And then, of course, we find out 3 officers hit by gunfire, at least one of them canine officer. And again, unofficially, we're hearing from County USC, and I take a breath because they're saying they are in stable condition. So anyway, to recap here, we're still waiting for the official briefing from LAPD to find out exactly the exact details about how this went down over the last couple of hours. That briefing, though, still maybe a good hour to 45 minutes away, I'm told. Back to you.
All right, Ed, thank you. We will stand by, of course, for that news conference. Of course, Fox 11 News at 10 o'clock will have the full update. Right now, we are watching the scene here as we hear this word of 3 officers shot, LAPD. This is the scene of the hospital there. You can see other agencies there responding, as often is the case when you have law enforcement and officers shot. And there's a response from other agencies that work with the LAPD. Alex, you had an update from our sources there on what we are hearing about the condition of the officers. Do you want to go over that again?
Right. So the last update that we had, again, this is sources at the hospital, not confirmed by either the LA County Sheriff or the LAPD we're looking at there. One of the officers shot in the arm. Another officer shot in the vest with shrapnel in the abdomen. And then the other officer shot in the elbow. It'll be interesting to hear more about their specific condition when we get an official briefing, which we're also hoping to get. Don't know if they will also speak at the hospital, if they'll all do it where Ed's location is. You can see, though, LA County Sheriff helping out there at the hospital.
Reminded that there is a citywide tactical alert, which means officers are staying on duty here as we deal with the situation. Suspect barricaded. No word on the suspect or the status. There's been no movement by this suspect. You know, sometimes we will have a news conference at the hospital. Sometimes we will hear from the doctors. Right now, we are still waiting to hear from LAPD itself. As we learned from our reporter, Ed Lascos, that the chief is out of town, so standing by to see who will speak for the department as we await official word from this incident and shooting that happened earlier this evening around, you said, 6:30-ish?
Somewhere around there, yes.
Okay, and there you are looking live at the scene. All the neighbors there are asked to shelter in place. That is tape or video that we had earlier of the incident, the scene there. Imagine all the neighbors in that area who now can't get into their homes, can't leave their homes, waiting for this to come to an end safely in their neighborhood.
Yeah, that's going to be a long night in that neighborhood, and you also got to imagine, Christine, just how loud it is in that neighborhood with all the helicopters overhead, with the police sirens, with everything else. You know, it's not going to be an easy night to sleep anytime soon if you live near Lincoln Heights tonight.
Right. You know, we had those robots that went in to perhaps provide a little bit more information for the LAPD as to what they're dealing with when it comes to this suspect. Obviously, if we're hearing this is the suspect's home, police can get a lot of intel as to who lives there and who this person might be. Are they in connection with a relative who might be able to give some information? And you were saying this was a narcotics suspect in an alley who then retreated to their home.
That's what sources are telling us so far. Yeah.
Okay.
So it'll be interesting to see who briefs. It'll be interesting to see if we see the mayor of Los Angeles at one of these as well. We have not seen or heard from her or her account so far tonight.
And I'm wondering, have we had Mayor Bass at a police incident as mayor?
Not of this extent that I can think of.
Newly elected mayor.
In a prime time sort of situation like this.
Yeah, newly elected mayor, longtime Angelino, former member of Congress. She knows the area well, knows the city well, but obviously operating in a different capacity. And this is her city. And
the author of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which she passed through the House twice. You know, was one of the sort of experts in the House on the issue of police reform. And, you know, has had a complicated relationship with some in police. But it would be interesting to see what she says or maybe doesn't say tonight.
Movement there by the robot, Rick Dickert.
This was, again, a video from earlier, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, essentially it's a status quo situation where they are just, that was the earlier incident where they really pushed that one initial robotic device up against that beam. Again, all they're trying to do is use those robotic devices to try to see anything they can, any type of information they can garner, they can gather of what's happening inside where they believe that individual is held up. Upper left corner, County USC Medical Center, just a few blocks away, a very short RA ride, ambulance ride from where this incident occurred, from where we believe that those 3 officers were hit and taken to that hospital. This Lincoln Heights neighborhood, again, it's a community of the city of Los Angeles. They have the blue street signs there. They have the Los Angeles mailing address. We call these different enclaves different names, and Lincoln Heights is one of the original neighborhoods of Los Angeles, old Los Angeles, just a bit to the east and north of downtown Los Angeles. And this, what we're looking at down below right now, is a small alleyway off of Prince Street, just north of the 10 freeway, just to the east of the 5, near the 5 and Dime, as we call it, as we cover traffic from Skyfox every morning. And that is where County USC Medical Center is located. This scene is just slightly north and slightly east of County USC Medical Center, just off of the main streets, which are Mission Road and Broadway. Broadway running east-west, Mission more of a north-south road,
kind of a diagonal road there, and Prince is a small little cutoff street from Broadway, winding around and then turning into Duke Road, and it's the alley just off of Prince Street where this is all unfolding.
You know, thank you for painting that picture of Lincoln Heights, because many people, you know, it's a very big community, Southern California, with a lot of different cities and a lot of different counties, and not everybody knows where Lincoln Heights is. You're exactly right. East LA, downtown LA-ish. I was just there a couple months ago for a story at the Puck Excel Academy, a great charter school. They had a great program where a teacher was honored with a big grant for her works in the community. It's working class families. It's modest families, modest people. I looked up the best taco shop there and wanted to go to one of the Mexican restaurants that was there in town to check that out and support that business. And it's just a very loving business owner right there as we think of that community of Lincoln Heights.
Yep.
You've covered many stories there yourself,
Many
I'm
stories
sure.
in Lincoln Heights over the years, and the people are always kind. But it is a community with a lot of poverty. It's a community with a lot of density. And you're seeing both of those things on display right now. When you look at some of the challenges now for officers on these tight, not particularly well-maintained streets, and in trying to get into some of these residences.
And again, what we're seeing in the larger box there off to the right and lower right, that's earlier Skyfox footage, and that our helicopter ran out of gas. We have about 2.5 hours of gas, Alex and Christine, before we have to turn around and go fill up, typically either at Burbank or at Van Nuys, where Skyfox is based there. It's a quick turnaround, and then we arrive back on scene and provide those aerial shots. But we are in a holding pattern, so to speak. We have no updates on the ground for any breaking situation from what has occurred that we have not already seen. SWAT's on scene. They've surrounded the area. The perimeter's been set up. The line around the area, as we call it. We believe they've gotten everybody out of harm's way that they believe could be in harm's way. That alleyway is blocked by 2 SWAT units. SWAT, again, the acronym for Special Weapons and Tactics. Highly trained officers that know exactly how to deal with situations like this. Armored vehicles, armored officers to protect them as they move into a very dangerous and fluid situation. And this situation is unfolding in Lincoln Heights.
So the chief of police, Michael Moore, who we believe, I guess, is out of town, tweeted that he is following closely tonight's violent encounter, resulting in 3 officers being shot. Reports from hospital have all 3 in stable condition. Ongoing tactical scene with outstanding gunmen. So that is the latest official information from the LAPD and the LAPD chief.
So for people who are wondering about the status of the officers, the 3 who were shot, to hear from the chief himself that they are in stable condition is a little bit reassuring there. We are looking at a scene of the hospital right there. No word from law enforcement officially yet. No one from the hospital speaking yet. You can see assistance there by the Sheriff's Department backing up LAPD in covering this incident here. But hearing from the chief has got to be a little bit reassuring to other members of the department, family members. This is obviously your greatest worry if you're law enforcement family. And again, we are waiting for a news conference this evening to hear more from official word from the LAPD, and we're standing by for that.
Although that, of course, gives you a preview of some of what we expect to hear from that potential news conference. So you see, the media is now gathered at the hospital. The media is gathered where LAPD told the media to gather, which is nearby the scene, waiting that briefing. And then the SWAT officers are gathered at the scene itself, trying to do their thing and trying to get this suspect out of this residence and let everybody else go. I mean, they're waiting for, Rick, that sort of code 4, right? All clear, and we're not at that point yet.
No, absolutely not. We're still waiting for units on the ground to give us an update on what's happening at the scene.
So as we are watching this here, we are, like I said, waiting word from law enforcement on what happened tonight. Alex, did you get a sense from the coverage that you were on with earlier that the officers were in uniform or plain clothes?
Don't know.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Because with narcotics, a lot of times they are plain clothes. If they were scouting the area out and made a move, or if they just...
But the fact, yeah, I mean, the fact, though, that according to that, what sources told us that they engaged multiple times, identified themselves, had a police dog there, so that person would at least be likely in uniform, you know, put the gas out there. If all that is true, this person knew what they were doing in shooting at law enforcement.
So you're saying a lot played out before the shots were fired by that suspect?
That is what the sources are telling us so far. Still waiting to get that information officially confirmed, and not clear if they're going to go that much detail when they speak. Obviously, what Michael Moore just put out is important information, but not very detailed information.
And they might also want to have more information on their suspect before they say a whole heck of a lot tonight.
Right.
And we do believe the suspect went into his own home. That's the word that we have unofficially here as we await more information. So they might have good intel on who this suspect is. They might know the person's name. Do they have a criminal history? Waiting to see the status of the suspect. There's been no movement, no action, and we've just had those robots there at the suspect's home there.
And this appears to be obviously the emergency entrance and exit point at County USC Medical Center, as we see individuals who are being treated being wheeled up to the hospital, the ambulances coming and going, the RAs. And of course, those are all sheriff's deputies. Those are sheriff's units that are standing by at County USC Medical Center, being that this is a county medical facility here. But obviously, LAPD, as you can see, those LAPD officers there on scene as well. A multi-agency turnout for this. When officers are reported down, officers need help. That is protocol. And that's what we're seeing here with these pictures.
Rick, one of the women officers we just saw is Captain Kelly Muniz, and she is with LAPD Press Relations. Obviously, she is there getting more information from the hospital location. She is often one that will give the news conferences, but she is also a go-to often for the media. So to see that person right there, that is the person we often hear from as we stand by and await more information from the LAPD. I would guess getting an update on the status of the officers who are there at the hospital.
Yeah, and we are hearing from our photographer on the ground that the press conference there is expected to begin pretty soon at the hospital. So that's what they're being told on the ground there. We shall see. We've all been in a sort of holding pattern for much of the last hour, desperate for more information. That most important information, though, the chief confirming what we had heard earlier tonight, that the suspects, or the officers who were shot, are all in stable condition and expected to survive. That is the best and most important news that we've heard so far tonight.
So there you see the media, Fox 11 as well, ready to hear from the LAPD when they are ready to give us an update and give you some more information as to what happened. We can only guess that at the hospital there are the family members of those officers with those officers. We haven't heard anything about people going into any kind of surgery or what kind of medical care they're getting at this moment in time. We can only wonder about their injuries. The chief, of course, saying they're in stable condition. And word has been said that they are non-life-threatening injuries. No injury is ever good for anybody, especially an officer. But non-life-threatening is certainly a little bit more reassuring.
Indeed. So we have been on the air now for several hours straight now. We are going to take a break from this version of our coverage. We will come back on to our digital properties when that press conference begins, maybe in 20 minutes or so. We, of course, will have complete coverage on all of this stuff tonight on the Fox 11 News at 10. We have Ed Lascos, Coco McAvoy, and Gina Silva all on scene covering various aspects of this. And so we hope to have a lot more information when you join you on TV and here in our digital space once again at 10 o'clock tonight.
All right, so we're going to sign off here.
We're going to sign